The horror story of my uncle came to an end with such horror and reality that it shrank the heart. It was a memory story from a long time ago, but the old story that he told to us. Our nephew, with all his memory and passion, was quite a shocking story. The story I said this time was also a post from an unexpected person. I usually read and listen to horror stories from all over the world at my small desk. But one day during the day, I received a very thick envelope from the postman. Recently, there have been a mixture of sarcastic and mischievous letters, so I was not careless at all. But as I opened the envelope and read it for a while, I realized that this was not just a thing. A local reporter who sent the letter was about a Buddha who was the monthly future and the newspaper company to which he belonged. Let's leave it as a reporter. The Buddha was a mummy that was passed down in the region year after year. Our reader, it was a super strange mystery story about a very special instant Buddha. Speaking of instant Buddha, it may be said that it is an object that is difficult to imagine for us Japan. But if we look broadly from the east to the world, foreign countries where the existence of icons such as Egyptian mummies and Frankenstein are established may be able to swallow it refreshingly. This ancient culture or activity of Japan, where people become Buddhas while they are alive, was made up of bizarre gestures that far exceeded the imagination we hear in the streets. This content was not a const- constraint on anyone but an untouchable secret culture that was very nervous and highly confidential for Japan's history and culture. This notice from him is driven by a desire to release the original text as it is. But considering the impact on the other party, I will use initials for specific people as usual. It's a scary story that you don't come across often, so I sincerely ask you to take your time with me until the end. The beginning of the letter began with this tone. My name is Korenaga, who has been covering the historic temple in N prefecture in in Japan for many years. Kyodo Shimbun has been covering strange and bizarre gods and Buddhas for a total of 15 years with the purpose of randomly introducing bizarre objects in this prefecture. This consultation is because I wanted to tell Mr. Koji about the story about the instant Buddha at this dead temple and shrine today. So I contacted you. It was written out. Korenaga told me in this letter about a strong story that happened while interviewing a monk who was in charge of that temple and shrine. The main content is like this, but I will edit and tell you the details in a timely manner. This monk was a disciple of the Motoyama sect and was an elite trainee of the shrine who entered the shrine at the age of only 15. He acquired the secrets of the school from an early age, and at the age of 23, he was selected as an initiated monk who was subject to immediate Buddhahood. Before the training, his name was Sanku, but he was appointed as a young man who was unparalleled in the training and the influence of the monk Hiromi at the time, who was the sign of the gods and the Buddhas. He becomes a practitioner who overwhelms others with his skills and talent that is called a child prodigy. The story of the horrific demon brought by the monk Sanku has become widely known as a story of resentment that is known to the general public, let alone in the temple and shrine area. I was able to witness the unique pre-entry set by this company, which is called the Manhole Steep Journey, and participate in the ceremony of entering Buddhism with good treatment. It can he be said that the first anomaly shown by the young Lord Sanku is related to his life. When the sign is achieved, he was begged to inherit the famous temple and shrine inside cold ink. On the contrary, I was imposed on the important topic and pressed for the division of various Buddhist meanings, from the request for the expansion of temples and shrines to the frontier area. There are even items related to the wife belt, and they began to show a movement to plan to achieve the transformation of all kinds of rules. The period of use in this training is set at 3.5 years, exactly 1 year after Sanku began to enter the meditation. It was time for me to cover the contents of the training. The day I had my first intense horror experience was an event on a summer day when I and a Buddhist monk met for the first time. In the summer of that year, the abnormal temperature of the highest temperature in central Japan continued, and the sweltering heat was hitting my physical condition. When I prepared the necessary camera equipment and recorder at the office in Honmachi M City, where the newspaper headquarters is located, and headed to the scene, the first strange things happened to me. I received a call from my parents' house in S City, where I usually have no news at all, from my sister, who lives in the same house as her mother, who won't see her son as a son. Everything is going to be a mess. I'm worried about him. I'm worried. He is mattering to himself. Masa was my own name and his first name was Masayoshi, so I understood the title that my mother usually called Masa, but the word Yosem didn't really hit me. At his parents' house, his father, Shinkichi, was like a subsonic mother, nagging him and thinking about the future of his life. But his mother, Masio, was completely indifferent to whether he was not interested in or obsessed with his children. Moreover, the most important feature of his life was that he was completely blind. That's right, that is, I can't see. His mother, Masayo, contracted an epidemic when he was 16 years old, and as a result, his vision became completely unclear after that. Such a silent mother who parent child relationship is a little weak suddenly began to worry about her son's surroundings. Brothers, isn't it became I'm so busy with work that my mother started to blur something. I'm being deceived by a bad woman. Don't be stupid. I don't want to be negated by you. What are you going to do if you don't marry? Stay by your mother's side. The unintentional contact from relatives caused emotional turmoil, but the strange pride that I felt about the importance of work as a man resulted in ignoring the proverbs from his mother. I was worried about the interview, so I headed to that temple and shrine without hesitation. I had been with the company for about 10 years, so I was in the mid-level category as a reporter. But as someone who didn't have a big scoop, I thought this project was a big opportunity. The figure of Mikura, our razor, the appearance I can never forget it even now. Its strange form was completely out of the ordinary. No, it may be safe to say that the appearance of Sanku itself has not changed much, but the very creepy experience I encountered along the way are still something I will never forget. Miku's age is notarized 23 years old, and I checked the profile column and entered the location. But the person sitting in front of me looks like an old man no matter how you look at it. Although the skeleton had the strength unique to young people in each section, the body visible from between the lobes decorated with silver and gold was a skinny and poor body that had been stripped of fat to the extreme. Although the luster of her skin was barely managed, her expression was so lackluster that she could barely maintain the appearance of her expression. My eyeballs were deeply depressed and black spots like so cold dark circles were engraved under my eyelids. Certainly, if you are a very virtuous monk, you may be able to since its appearance, but it was better to go with an ugly creature with fear of death and worries pushed to the forefront. The voice emanating from the throat became very unclear, perhaps because of the phlegm entangled in the throat. This actually inspired my fear. Finally, you have come. People's interest in things that are not easy to get used to will inevitably fade. By the way, what will your face be like? The question of face, which I had no concept of, was so difficult that I was asked to immediately draw on a blank canvas, and I felt silent on the spot. I have never felt so grateful for the face I was told at that time. The location of the venue was held in front of the opening of the main hall of Company Z. I entered the back of the worship hall and pressed a small Paulonia desk in front of the main hall to start the interview. There was the staircase to worship in front of the main shrine, and the beach floor was placed on the platform. I set up a poor table in that place, sat there, and started full-fledged interview. I started asking questions around 2 p.m., but as soon as the time came to point to p.m., 2 p.m., black clouds began to cover the entire shrine. I feel like I've been in a similar situation somewhere, but there is a sound in the sky that makes me feel like I'm going down. It creates a frightening atmosphere that appears in manga or movies, but this is not a casual entertainment or joke at all. In front of me is an apprentice monk who becomes a living Buddha of a venerable temple in order to pass on Japan's bizarre tradition to future generations. This healing is not something that can be neglected. I felt that if there were evil spirits that were rampant in the precincts, I should not be disturbed by such things. Sanku is moist in his mood and does not show any particular agitation or depression. Still, when I saw my bloody eyeballs and the blood bezel in my angry neck. I felt that it wasn't just a thing. This abnormality of his cheeks being sunken and sin had exceeded his imagination of how big his physique was. I was not without concerns about whether the dialogue would continue to the end. Mr. Sanku, so far, no, I think I'm still in the process of making dear profit. But could you please tell me your impression of your training recently? Even so, there is no reason to visit even if it's not completed. The question is, time has passed. It takes a lot of power to purify the soul. What is the soul? Do you mean to enter the temple? Human suffering arises from the realization of being alive as a prelude to preventing it. Monks Sanku, until now, it has been exactly 1 year since the training began, but there is process of about 2 years later. I would like you to talk about the difficulty of becoming a Buddha while you are alive. Uh, uh, wah, wah, oh, 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 oh yeah, yeah. Son, a little, a little, it's not good. There was less than 2 meters between the place where the monk was sitting and where I was. But that magic was a momentary event. Sanku suddenly pulled out his right eyeball with his own hand and threw the eyeball at the female assistant who was joining him as the camera crew. Oh, 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 whoa, whoa, whoa. Sanku seemed to be suffering from heavy breathing, whether it was the intensity of the pain or the pain of not being able to breathe. And the woman in the tattoo was completely frozen and in an upright position. I was taking pictures from the front with a tape recorder and a handheld microphone, but the woman in the camera was wearing soundproof earphones from the rear left and pointing the voice machine and gun microphone bar at the monk Sanku. Because I had packed the shooting equipment in the mesh outdoor vest. It was soaked with bodily fluid and blood from the monk eyeballs. I didn't know if it was the shock caused by it or the shock of the young monk action that did something unthinkable, but I trembled and collapsed on the spot. 篠崎, hey, be firm, keep going. The third woman named Shinozaki was a 27-year-old woman, but she fainted and collapsed completely. Sank glared at me and said, I'm begging you, kill me. Abel is buried here, lost everything. Son, what's going on? Please be careful. Please take care of this shrine. Sanku sat on the floor table and put his hand on the desk to hold on. I was shaking my body in a trap. I felt like I was about to fall to my side, but it seemed like something was walking on an able force to make me stand. The main shrine is a little different. Our razor, the main worship hall is raised to the right side. There is an alcove of sorts planning one step further to the left, and I didn't notice it because it wasn't very noticeable at first, but it's made of black charcoal and it's located somewhat tucked away from the main shrine. There is some kind of animal something. When I finally looked at it, it looked like a fox. At first, there is a very thin old man sitting there. I saw it, but when I looked closely, it was an adult fox with almost lifeless and weak brown fur. He glowered at me resentfully, trembling a little. His eyes were sharp, wild instincts of all kinds of grudges dwelling in his eyes. I didn't know if it was drawing our bodily fluids from my mouth, but something was dripping, and what I really felt sorry for was that my right shoulder was completely cut off. I think I felt the sympathy of the same animal at that moment. That the tightness of my eyes may be due to the pain of the wound. Koji had led the water so far and had a terrible sense of regret. I thought that such a cast story would not be like that. I went to the kitchen with trembling hands. I took out mineral water from the refrigerator and poured it down my throat at once. I calmed down a little, so I went on to continue the letter. I thought it was impossible to continue filming on location any longer, so I immediately announced the cancellation. Cancellation. The target Sanku is turning to the main shrine and starting to chant the Heart Sutra on his knees, and the same fox inside is still sitting on the left side with a terrible grudge. I hurriedly pointed my handicap in the direction of the fox, but the assistant producer in his fifties was raising his hand up and posing with his hand up, as if he didn't know what he was talking about. Shinozaki's Atato was taken somewhere by a shrine official. I myself heard a lot of tinnitus coming from my left temple. The headache that followed was so bad that I couldn't help but feel dizzy. The confusion only got worse, so of course the program location ended abruptly, but the shocking fact that what discovered after that became strong news for the people who lived in the place, let alone as on location. I'll talk about that fact later, but the appearance of the monk Sanku is already terrible. A small surname came from the back anyway, if it wasn't an interview. I was also taken to the hospital by ambulance. Even that go beyond the scope allowed as the taste of the shrine as Paul will be talked about in the surrounding area with this incident. There were a lot of concerns and rumors about how the inheritance was. The secrecy was bad, and whether there were people who had actually seen or heard the entire training itself. It is true that the procedure and process in the creation of the secret Buddhas are not out of the gate, and the entry into Buddhism at the opening of the book will be seen off in front of the gate in the presence of only some valedictorians and selected town families. After that, it will be ceremony to people accompanied by a samurai surname, so the detail of the basic training will not be leaked out on the table. That's right, because the atrocities of the atrocities, which squeeze the body and mind to the limit and eradicate human affection and desire, are usually carried out only by a limited number of people who have the idea that if temptation exists outside, it will not be established at that point. This initiation was also firmly established with the intention of eliminating all waste unless the vision of fulfilling the mysteries of e- esoteric, esoteric Buddhism was achieved. As a result, we arrived at the initiative that is being carried out today. Still, this bizarre behavior and incident is something that the public organization reacts sensitively, and the prefecture security division and the special division of the band of the head office have embarked on an organization that has never been heard of. The first thing that the public organization started was, of course, an interview with the monk himself. However, no matter where I look, I can't find the person in question. That's right, Sanku suddenly disappeared after exposing that tragedy. An open investigation was conducted on the main road of the shrine, but it was finally impossible to find out the whereabouts of Bikura. He endured the training to become an instant Buddha in a strange appearance, but finally went crazy and could not keep his body. A year has passed in no time. The Nam officers began to search for the soil pipe in the forest in the embankment where they were supposed to enter. When I unearthed the vacuum tomb in the ground, what? There's nothing inside. No, it's needs no more to say that there is nothing but a very small corpse was found inside the tomb. The site is about 15 centimeters in diameter and the thickness is only about 3.4 centimeters. If you look closely, you can see that it is on suspicion of some kind of remains, but I don't know what its true identity is. It's just so big that you can hold it with one hand. So at first I thought it was an old Japan doll or something, but the faint carbon smell from the object indicates that it is not artificial. After that, I asked the forensic expert to conduct a detailed component analysis, and it turned out that it was definitely a human child body. In addition, there is a spell card. It is assumed that the color of the base paper was yellow, but it has deteriorated over time to gray, which is almost white, probably because it is quite old. There are a lot of single kanji written on the bill itself, which I have never seen before, but of course I don't know what is written. I understood that this was a curse card because the right edges of the paper was engraved with the curse and the word not on the left edge. I have covered many curses, but I have never seen such an abominable curse. It seems that the earthen tomb is formed by compacting plaster and mud in a space of about two tatami mats and height of about 150 centimeters. But what is the meaning of this remnant left in its size? Normally, the Buddhist figure of the monk Saikai, who entered the Buddha more than a century ago, should be sitting there. The surprise and confusion of all those involved when this fact was found out was great. Concern about the public reputation at the time, when the Buddhist concept of the instant Buddha was not well established, a high class practitioner with a mission to manifest his idea, living Buddha became the perfect mission of monk Saikai. 99% of the people who make up the temple and shrine, including the samurai elementary school, thought that the Saikai monk had been enshrined in this tomb. The fact is that a completely different object was put in it. After that, a large-scale epidemiological investigation was conducted at this headquarters for several months. A house search was conducted at the temple and shrine headquarters, and it turned out that the only two generations of the initiation ceremony, Enkai and Seikai, which were said to have been going on since the middle of the Edo period, was the first generation. After that, it turned out that there were only Saikai monks who were considered spiritual objects of the century. The source of this dead temple and shrine seems to be tracked back to Azuchi Momoyama, but there is no document that it was accurately ordained other than these three Buddhas. Koji felt like he was feeling sick. I felt that the appearance of shrine and temple in Japan was maintained, even if there was good and evil and half reality. But why, even if Sanko is scheduled to enter, isn't there a mummy from the West Sea that should be left in the storehouse? When Koji finished reading the letter, he asked Korenaga while he was worried about. Mr. Korenaga, if you will eventually find out what is in the Asan warehouse, why was there no instant Buddha of the Saikai monk? Uh-huh, that like this. Saikai has indeed been inducted. After that, it seems that the truth is that someone decided to enter the murder and abandon the mummy. Uh-huh, someone threw it away. Why do you do that? It seems that this ragged journey of 10,000 peaks takes the form of one sun transmission, and its bloodline is so harsh that we can even imagine it. So, what do I want to know? I wonder if something like that was put in it. It's difficult to understand the full meaning, but it may have become difficult to distinguish between what exists and what does not exist. What do you mean? Somewhere in my training, I may have noticed the existence of something that changes and something that does not change. It's quite abstract. Koji realized that Kurinaga was hesitant to tell this story to the end. Maybe it's better to keep the real fear as a horror story. A few weeks later, the result of my mommy's DNA test was sent by mail from the security forensics section of the main office. In addition to the fetus, it was clear that the genes of another animal had been detected. Mr. Korinaga, what happened to Sanku after that? I am hospitalized in a hospital in that area. In that direction, he was treated carefully at company that he may be nominated as valedictorian in the future. Is it a valedictorian? I am also planning to join the staff. I feel that there is something that attracts me. Attract? Mr. Kurinaga, I won't say anything bad, but you should stop. Koji was worried about Kurinaga, who hung up the phone as if thinking of something at the end. After that, I haven't been able to contact Kurinaga. There seems to be no doubt that an unfinished horror awaits them. I thought I couldn't help but quietly pray that the further horror of this story would end in peace. End.